welcome back. You're watching Halftime Report on CNBC TV 18. It's turning out to be a bit of a sluggish session now for the Nifty. So we're down around 0.4% currently for the Nifty. The Bank Nifty just about holding steady at this point in time. And the mid-caps, which have outperformed on a week-to-date basis, are still managing to hold their head above the water. But we have a lot of stocks in focus. Lupin, that stock is down around 4% after reporting their Q3 numbers late last night. Both the revenue and the margin were in line with estimates, and so were the US business, but the profit missed expectations, and largely there was an expectation that maybe it could outperform what the street was anticipating. I did catch up with Ramesh Swaminathan, who's the ED and CFO of the company, earlier this morning, and began by asking him about the contribution of key launches such as the bowel drug Suprep generic in the US and price pressure as well.
So as you would, know, first quarter results were, a bit of a surprise. It was about 125. Q2, we actually saw it rise to about $157 million. This quarter, it is $177 million, whilst the same time previous year was about 201. So obviously, it is there has been price erosion of a high kind. Essentially, you found price erosion in products like albuterol, Brovana, and famotidine. In the course of this quarter, we actually launched about 4 products. Altogether, all of the new products brought in about $20 million. So if you subtract 20 from the 177, we're talking about price erosion of a pretty high kind in the rest, so to speak. So that's where we are. Price erosion does continue in America.
To what extent does price erosion continue? Because a couple of quarters ago, it was so severe for Lupin that you had to exit some products. Is it as severe? Is there an improvement? What can you guide us on?
So essentially, if you look at the OSD business in America, it's been under pressure for quite some time. If you look at, in fact, what was a $65 billion opportunity 4 or 5 years ago, has now come down to about 56 in gross terms. In net terms, it's from 35 to about 30. OSD, in a general sense, is under tremendous pressure. That's essentially because the channel partners have kind of consolidated, and that actually has impacted a lot of the manufacturers. And that's the reason why I think the industry is going through some tough times out there. But there are silver linings. If you look at, in fact, the inhalation space, or for that matter, the injectable space, they're doing fairly well. And that's where the focus really is. We're kind of pivoting from, in fact, the OSD to potentially more complex ones, which includes the injectable space as well as the inhalations. And you know very well that inhalations, we're pretty strong out there with the array of products that we are going to launch over time.
Okay. What is the run rate for the US markets on a quarterly basis then? At one point, you had guided for around $200 million as well. When do we see Lupin get back to those levels? Has 177 become a base?
As you know, we are focusing on, in fact, the more complex ones and getting out of products that where we believe the margins are going to be lower or are indeed already very low. It doesn't make sense for us to kind of continue. And that would actually mean that some parts of our portfolio might not necessarily be potent anymore, which is really the OSD bit. So I think the top line is really going to be a function of when we come out with, in fact, the relevant products for the market. I would imagine that the range for the next few quarters, until, in fact, the top line moves because of newer products, is going to be around the 170 mark, really.
Okay. Spiriva generic, the company as of last quarter had indicated that the queries have been responded to from the US FDA. You are working with the US FDA to get approval. Where do things stand?
So we have an early date with them. So we have been talking to them, and we are very, very hopeful. And anywhere between April and July is when we think that we would get the approval. So we are fairly confident that that launch would certainly happen in the next few quarters for sure, perhaps by September at very worst.
Okay. So have all the queries been answered, or has the US FDA come up with any fresh queries with regards to Spiriva generic from the last time you gave us an update?
No, there has been no new update and no new queries being asked. There is, in fact, early review being set by the authorities. And as I said, we still really are very hopeful that you would see a launch in the first half.
Okay. Well, margins have improved to over 12% for the company this quarter. Can you tell us what is your visibility for Q4?
No, as we had guided, we said that there would be progressive increase in terms of margins. That is actually coming in from, in fact, products that we bring to the market. And then you saw, in fact, that, I spoke about the cashier products that we brought to the markets in America. This quarter particularly, so you saw we were stymied a little by, in fact, the loss of exclusivity when it comes to India, so in certain products, for example, the Ondero, for example, there was price erosion because it went out of exclusivity. And that's the reason, for example, we had an impact insofar as the turnover for India itself is concerned. We also had a slight impact because of NLEM, the expanding list. But for sure, insofar as expenses are concerned, there is a lot of focus on that. We did speak about various initiatives that we are carrying on, which includes, for example, reduction of manpower at the factory level, R&D level, and the like, the footprint reduction. Looking at a host of initiatives on freight, on failure to supply, and other inefficiencies that there were in the system. A lot of it has actually been addressed. And you're actually seeing some parts of it, even in this current quarter. You would expect things to progress along good lines over the next several quarters. And as I said, we are looking at, in fact, a core EBITDA margin of between 18 to 20%, which hopefully we would be able to realize sometime during the next fiscal.
Tell us a little more about India, Mr. Swaminathan, because, in Q1, it was down 8.8%. In Q2, it was up around 2.6%. This quarter also, it's a single-digit growth, which is sub 5%. What is the pressure in the Indian market, and when do you expect it to pick up?
No, I think the way I see it is we continue to do pretty well in India. The reasons why it comes out as a lackluster performance is only because of the fact that there were a couple of products which went we suffered loss of exclusivity. The first was Sidbis, as you would recall, it was a product that was in license from Novartis, which unfortunately we were not able to retain after it went out of exclusivity and it went on to a competitor. That, in any case, even if it had stayed in our stable, it would have actually, the prices have kind of come down dramatically. And equally with Ondero, this is a Boehringer Ingelheim on the respiratory, on the diabetes front. So that actually has also impacted dramatically. It's only the diabetes portfolio which is actually causing us some pain at this stage, but we're still growing in our really. So I think if you look at the next 3 to 4 years, we're fairly confident that you would see tremendous growth back, a secular about 10 to 12%. That actually would mean, but of course, newer products and potentially looking at, more feet on the ground for of course, mindful of, in fact, the productivity concerns as well. And the confidence in the Indian market is still ripe for good growth for the next several years.
Mr. Swaminathan, leave us with some guidance.
Lupin's management, the stock in focus down 4% in today's trading session. We'll do one thing, slip into a short break now. On the other side, Sanjay Thapar, who's the ED and CEO of SJS Enterprises, will join us to discuss their Q3 numbers. So stay tuned for that.